Hello, my name is Lydia Refutation, and today I'm going to be refuting Gilbert's claim that DACA has a positive effect on the United States. And then his secondary claims were that 1, it positively impacts the educational system by giving undocumented immigrants increased access to higher education, also known as college. 2, recipients improve the economy by getting temporary work permits. And 3, beneficiaries positively contribute to their communities. So my response to his first claim, that DACA has a positive impact on the United States educational system, is that although recipients may be positively benefiting from the educational system, that doesn't mean that they're positively affecting the system. In this argument, there's no statistical evidence where he shows, for example, how college ratings go up due to the amount of DACA recipients enrolled, or how the education provided improves. He begins his argument by stating that 65,000 undocumented students graduate from high school each year and are faced with various barriers of education. And this is true, but it's because of these barriers that they face that they typically don't go the higher education route, and that's why they don't positively affect it, because they affect it so minimally. In efforts to show how the DACA recipients were actively involved, he stated that 65% pursue higher education. But this statistic is kind of misleading, because pursue could mean that they took one class in college or began researching a major. It doesn't mean that they're actively enrolled. According to MSNBC and the Huffington Post, 15% of DACA recipients are enrolled in college, and then only 20% of immigrants have a college degree. And so why is this so low? What is this barrier? DACA does not provide Social Security to its recipients, meaning that they're not eligible for FAFSA, they are not eligible for in-state tuition, they don't apply for a lot of grants and scholarships, and also for a lot of classes you need Social Security numbers to even apply. So higher educational systems are actually a barrier they face. So they typically don't go that route, and because without proper documentation, few immigrants are able to find professional employment that higher education would grant them, so they typically just result to skill-based jobs. And so therefore they're unlikely to both attend and affect the higher educational system. So that leads me to my next point. For his second claim, he states that DACA recipients improve the U.S. economy when they get temporary work permits. And my response to that is that an influx in DACA recipients hurts the U.S. economy through the supply and demand of workers. So according to CIS, 15 million Americans are currently out of work. And so through an added flow of DACA recipients, we're adding a load of supply to the labor market, but there's no increase in demand, which means that prices, the amount they're being paid goes down, and also the amount of availability goes down. He doesn't show an increase in GDP since the institution of DACA. He only states that 91% of recipients are currently employed. And that's not a bad thing, that's actually a really good thing, but we don't know what kind of jobs those are. And so since the majority of DACA recipients do not have a college degree, these are typically lower skilled jobs and skill-based jobs, and it's very easy for those jobs to be under the table. He also mentions how recipients increase state revenue due to sales tax, but this only continues to show the minimal effect that they're having on the economy, because sales tax is such a small part of a bigger picture. And so they're not only unproductively affecting the U.S. economy, but through the low-skilled work, they're forced to perform because they don't have Social Security or typically higher educational degrees. The work they're doing typically devalues and degrades the workers. And so that leads me to my last claim, that DACA beneficiaries positively contribute to their communities. Now, this is true. They do positively influence their communities. They aren't bad people. But the evidence provided doesn't justify his claim, and so therefore I'm going to state that DACA recipients contribute to their communities on a micro level, but it's not long term. So although they might not be causing any physical harm, they are negatively impacting their communities through the way they take advantage of government services. So for example, according to CIS, the National Academy of Science estimated that DACA recipients' households consume $20 billion more in public services than they paid in taxes each year. And adjusted with inflation, this would mean $40 billion, like present day. He mentioned that they're receiving state licenses and IDs, but that doesn't show how those people are positively affecting the United States corporately. This shows how they're positively benefiting from U.S. services and government services. And so the evidence provided just simply doesn't justify the claim, and there's not enough evidence provided in general. It's a big claim to make with no backing. So in conclusion, the evidence provided doesn't prove the claim he was making, and it rather shows how DACA recipients are positively benefiting from the U.S., not positively affecting it. Thank you.
Okay, we're doing pretty good on the structural stuff. That's fine. On the notion that there's a positive impact, you say there's a positive impact on the recipient, but not necessarily to the system, and I appreciate that distinction. I think that's important. The argument about higher education, I think, is a little bit confusing here, because at some points it sounds like you're suggesting that the people who would be covered by DACA are generally not taking advantage of it, and so it doesn't really help very much. And on the other hand, you're also suggesting that the reason that they don't do it is because they don't have the access to those sorts of things. And I thought that that's the kind of thing that DACA was supposed to be addressing, giving them access to those kinds of things. So if it doesn't do that, then I think your argument is that it's futile and it doesn't produce the outcome that we want it to. If it does provide access to those things, then you need to make the argument that says that people don't take advantage of this kind of thing because they are not necessarily interested in it as much. I mean, some people might be interested, but a lot of them are not motivated to do those kinds of things. They're interested in a job, not necessarily higher education, especially if they have to pay for it themselves. So like I said, it's a little bit of a dilemma, and it's unclear which way you're going to end up going on that. On the second part, I thought that was much clearer. Your third parts are a lot clearer in the way you're arguing here, because you're suggesting that there is either a potential drawdown or a negative effect on the economy because of all of the people who are coming and trying to qualify for DACA. Like, we've got competition for jobs. A lot of them are low-skilled jobs, and the people who they're going to be competing with are the ones who are least able to find other jobs. I think that that's one of the things that you kind of want to argue here. There's also a general suggestion that it has effect on wages. I think you need to have a little bit more information on that. The sales tax argument you present here, but it really belongs more under that third point, where you do have some statistical information there that suggests that what people are missing is, look, they're not bad people, they're not criminals, they're okay. However, they are utilizing a lot of resources that are disproportionate to what they contribute, and that is a potential problem. And that's the kind of impact that we ought to be concerned with. I think that you do a pretty good job on making that argument. All right, thank you.